After I died, my parents burned vast amounts of money for me every day, making me the wealthiest woman in the underworld. Later, they went even further. They arranged a ghost marriage for me, sending an actual person down. I'm sorry, but can I return the goods if I don't want them? No, my groom replied indifferently. You're already here. From now on, you'll call me husband. I've been dead for 3 years. Everything in the underworld is fine, except for the lack of sunlight and Wi-Fi. My bank account is overflowing because my parents burn so much money for me daily. My family runs a funeral service, so money is the one thing we never lack. Thus, I became a wealthy woman in the underworld. They say money can buy anything, even immortality. My current life is more comfortable than when I was alive, so I don't feel any urge to reincarnate. But today, my troubles arrived. Ella went to the bird station to pick up a delivery. There's a big package for you today. The shout from downstairs woke me up, and I opened the window to look down. A black iron tricycle was parked below. The ghost who called me was Officer Zhao from Swift Delivery. He was a delivery man his whole life, so after he died, he started a delivery service in the underworld. Officer Zhao saw my head poke out, considered his mission accomplished, and drove his small tricycle off to make more deliveries. I found his smile before he left very strange, like he was watching an interesting play unfold. What kind of package couldn't fit in his small tricycle, forcing me to pick it up myself? I changed out of my pajamas, washed my face, and went out. Deliveries in the underworld are all offerings from our living relatives, sent to the service station before reaching our hands. Today, there weren't many ghosts picking up packages. Aunt Zhang, at the station, smiled warmly like a kind mother when she saw me, as if she had been waiting for me for a long time. Ella, your parents are so good to you. You don't have to worry about food every day. Look what they sent you today. She pointed to a row of chairs by the wall. I was stunned when I saw it. My jaw nearly dropped. My parents, how on earth could they send me a man? I quickly glanced at him, then swiftly bowed my head. Gritting my teeth, I whispered, Aunt Zhang, are you sure you're not mistaken? How can it be a man? Aunt Zhang munched on melon seeds, checking the delivery number. No mistake. It's for you. I secretly peeked at the man again. No, the ghost there. This time, he looked at me too. He was a very handsome ghost, though he seemed ill, likely having died not long ago. His good looks distracted me, and I didn't even consider that I might have the right to refuse the delivery. After signing, I led him home. The news that my parents sent me a ghost groom seemed to spread everywhere. All the ghosts I knew on the way curiously absorbed the drama. Ella, is it your wedding night tonight? Remember to invite us for celebratory drinks. I shooed away the chatty fellow. Go, go, go. Nothing to see here. Stop crowding us. Haha, she's even shy. My face flushed. I cleared my throat lightly, glanced at the ghost groom's indifferent expression, and comforted him. This is your first time here. Don't worry. They're just like this. They won't bite. He was very quiet, not even replying to my words, always looking aloof and melancholic. I wondered if he was mute, or if he was rejecting me and didn't want to talk. Despite his silence, he was very cooperative. Before I came to the station to pick him up, He sat obediently, waiting for me. After I arrived, he quietly followed me, like a well-behaved, understanding preschooler. Actually, I quite like quiet men, and coupled with his good looks, I was utterly charmed. In truth, whether he came or not, I still lived alone in this enormous villa. It sounds incredibly lonely, but today my house became bustling and lively. The house was packed with ghost friends I'd made from all corners, all coming to see my groom. I had to set up several wedding banquet tables to entertain them. The ghost groom sat in the bedroom like a captive bride. A few male-obsessed ghosts stood at the door, covering their mouths, giggling and peeking at him. Only after drinking and eating their fill did they finally leave. Yeah. Worms. Harper door, delting out the house. How? So, I returned to the bedroom. The ghost groom lay on my bed, seemingly unaware, one hand propped under his head, his face looking worn. Ready for our wedding night? He suddenly asked me. This was the first time he'd spoken to me, and it immediately flustered me. I stammered, whatever you want. Then you go shower first. I'll get ready. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I didn't expect him to be quite so open. I, stiff as a statue, rushed into the bathroom. After my shower, I found the ghost groom sprawled on the bed again. Doesn't he want to consummate the marriage? Why is he going to sleep so early? I approached the bed, hesitant to wake him. His palm rested on the mattress, and something wet and sticky was seeping out. I flung the blanket back. Damn it, the whole bed was covered in blood, and the ghost room was unconscious. Oh my God, wedding night blood isn't supposed to be like this. I haven't done anything yet. I quickly carried the groom to get him examined. Dead people in the underworld are light and floaty, almost weightless, so he wasn't a problem for me to carry. At the hospital, the doctor's eyes widened as he looked at the unconscious ghost groom, sticking out his tongue, pinching his ears, and examining his entire body. Finally, he stared at me in shock and said, "How did you get this person? His lifespan isn't over yet." I was instantly stunned by his words. After a long, anxious wait, my ghost groom finally woke up. I quickly asked him, "You're awake? What's your name? Where are you from? How did you die?" "No, wait. You're not completely dead, are you?" The ghost groom calmly leaned against the headboard, facing my barrage of questions, and simply replied with 2 words. "Ethan Kwan." So, his name was Ethan Kwan. I didn't know if he meant Ethan Kwan or Happy Key. Anyway, back to the problem at hand. I just wanted to figure out how on earth he ended up marrying me. He frowned and retorted, "A ghost marriage." When I woke up, I was brought here and told to wait for you to pick me up. This was probably the longest sentence he had ever spoken. His voice was calm and pleasant, matching his handsome features. However, I couldn't feel any further interest in him. The doctor had clearly stated that his life had not yet ended. Seeing that he couldn't explain why, I decided to go above and ask my parents. This was the advantage of being rich. Money could not only influence ghosts and spirits, but also allow them to use back doors. I easily bribed the yin-yang gatekeeper to bring my ghost groom back to my parents' home. It was night now. A crescent moon hung high, bare branches pointing up at the night sky like jagged bones. For a ghost to remain in the mortal world, it had to rely on an object. I pulled Ethan, letting him drift into the courtyard, and just then saw two moths on the window. We both entered them. We landed on the light bulb. Under the lamp's glow, my parents were arguing with my grandfather. My mother said sadly, "Father, you're too muddled. How can an underworld marriage be arranged so casually? What if Ella down there isn't happy? Aren't you just causing her trouble?" My father beside her continued to sigh. Today this man's body was brought here by his family, waiting for burial. Father, you are being incredibly disrespectful to the body, ma'am. Unfortunately, my grandfather had been suffering from Alzheimer's for several years, so he didn't understand what they were talking about. He looked around as if searching for something. My parents saw his expression and gave up trying to reason with him. My ancestors were funeral organizers. Whether I wanted to believe it or not, I had no choice. Generally, one always had to be cautious. My grandfather had a bit of the metaphysical in him. His fortune-telling and divination were very effective. Currently, on the altar table dedicated to Kasitigaba Bodhisattva in my house, there were memorial photos of me and Ethan. In front of the photos, a red candle burned, a red cloth was draped, and a plate of apples and brown eggs were arranged, completing the ritual, just like a real wedding from ancient times. I turned to look at the moth that was Ethan. He was quietly perched on the light bulb. The fine hairs on his antennae emitted a faint golden glow under the lamp's light. Seeing me look at him, he tilted his head, extended his two antennae, and lightly touched mine. I wasn't sure what this meant. Afterward, I was truly captivated by this moth. The more we touched, the cuter I found him. I was stunned for a moment. My antenna, which was clutching the light bulb, loosened slightly, and I slipped, the entire moth falling straight into my grandfather's collar. A large, warm, rough hand took hold of me. I was terrified, silently praying that Grandpa wouldn't swat me. His broad palm opened, and I, the little moth, was exposed to the light. Grandpa's cloudy eyes drew close. Grandpa had elderly amnesia. His eyes were dim, and his ears were deaf. But he could recognize me with just a glance. My parents couldn't say anything. He just sighed and walked away. I spread my wings to cover my head, fluttering twice to let Grandpa know it was me. He could feel me. I always knew. I had died unexpectedly 3 years ago, and my body had never been found. So my family had lost contact with me since then. The first time, I transformed into a small sparrow and flew home. I chirped on my grandfather's shoulder for a long time. He told my parents there was no need to search for me anymore. Since then, my parents burned paper money for me every day, hoping I'd live better down there. This time, I returned due to a worrying issue. I looked up, carefully searching for the shadow on the lamp. He had left the light bulb, flying to a coffin in the funeral home and stopping there. Grandpa chuckled twice, saying with relief, "My dear granddaughter has brought her grandson-in-law home." The little moth was speechless, breaking out in a sweat. This was Ethan's coffin. He had recognized it himself. I flew to the opening of the coffin lid, signaling for Grandpa to open it. He actually understood. He thought I wanted to see my groom, so he pushed the coffin lid aside for me. Then I saw Ethan's real body. He wore a black shroud. His eyes and lips were slightly blue, but his skin was unusually pale. He looked like a man who had died suddenly. At this moment, Ethan flew to the corpse's wrist again. "Go away! Go away! Go away! Don't touch it!" My grandfather shooed him away, but he grabbed the wrist again. Grandpa had to pinch the corpse's wrist to hurt him. Then he suddenly stopped. It seemed as if he had suddenly regained his memory, his eyes shining brightly, his expression stern, and even his Mandarin was miraculously standard. "My grandson-in-law, why is his pulse still beating?" Grandpa wasn't senile. He wasn't muddled at all on such important matters. He immediately informed my parents and called an ambulance to take Ethan to the hospital. I went with Ethan. I wanted to stick to my mother, fly into her hair and hide, perfectly content. Ethan was initially tucked into my grandfather's coat pocket. He poked his head out, saw me there, and flew over to squeeze in with me. Moths can't make sounds or communicate, so I didn't know what he wanted. At the hospital, Ethan's real body was rushed to the emergency room. Vital signs confirmed he was alive. He must have experienced the common phenomenon of apparent death right before the death certificate was issued. As long as he was saved, I would be at peace. Now, I had to go. I slipped out of the moth, letting it fly away. Now I appeared as a ghost. No one entering or leaving the hospital could see me. My mother was asking the doctor about his condition. I hugged her, gently detaching the little moth from her hair. I said to Ethan, "All right, you stay here from now on. When you wake up, you can re-enter your body. Forget about this, and don't mention me to anyone." The moth silently looked at me. Its eyes were glossy black, and it had two feathery antennae on its head. Looking at it for a while, it didn't seem ugly anymore. Especially when we were about to part, I suddenly thought he was quite cute. I held the moth, hid it in a potted plant in the hospital corridor, covering it with leaves. Meeting once is fate. You must live well. Finally, I glanced at my parents and grandfather not far away. I couldn't bear the pain in my heart any longer and quickly passed through a wall in front of me, disappearing. Back in the underworld, the gloomy sky here never changed, like perpetual twilight, making me intensely homesick. I arrived at my doorstep, and Officer Zhao again passed by with his clattering iron delivery tricycle. "Ella, there's another package for you at the express station." After shouting, he sped off to his next delivery location. What were my parents planning to send me this time? When I arrived at the service station, Aunt Zhang, the station master, was chatting with a male ghost, her face beaming. "Aunt Zhang, I'm here to pick up a delivery. You're here." Aunt Zhang smiled even more brightly, pointing to the male ghost in front of her and saying to me, "Quickly, take your groom away. Don't return him. He's too handsome." At the same moment, the ghost, who had his back to me, turned around. He looked at me with a rare smile in his eyes. We had only just parted ways, and I felt instantly struck by lightning. How was he back again? What about all the hard work I put in before? 1 second ago, I was still lamenting this short fate, and the next, a fire ignited in my head. I can return the package, right? I want to refuse. I looked at Aunt Zhang, determined. Aunt Zhang immediately tried to persuade me. "That's how, Aunt Zhang, and no one turning his soldiers. That's how that's long Return what? You two are a perfect match, a talented man and a beautiful woman. She lowered her voice and whispered to me, "If you don't want to take him, he'll be like those lonely ghosts, without even a place to stay. I just heard that your groom has no relatives to offer sacrifices for him." Ethan stood quietly to the side, as if he heard nothing. Whether a ghost lives well depends on how much their family up above misses them. Not every ghost here can live without worries. Those without anyone to honor them will have no support, regardless of whether they were high-ranking officials or beggars in their previous life. Everyone is equal down here. It's just that they have to wander all day to get by. I'm always too soft-hearted. I had no choice but to keep him at my house. Back home, for the first time, he initiated a conversation with me. I let your grandfather know I was still breathing because I wanted him to help me completely end my life. I couldn't believe it. What did you say? What's wrong with you? Why do you want to die? How can a normal person help you do that? That's illegal. He saw my grandfather had Alzheimer's and was even willing to keep him as a grandson-in-law, so he took advantage. Luckily, my grandfather was clear-headed on important matters and didn't do as he wished. But why would a living person think about this? Suddenly, my eyes widened with understanding as I asked him, "Could the cause of your death have been suicide?" Ethan looked up at me, his eyes long and narrow. His pupils as black as ink dots. He was very quiet and unexpressive, but I thought he seemed to be hiding many secrets. Just looking at each other, I already sensed his complexity. I sighed and changed the subject. "You sprayed blood all over my bed, and I haven't even cleaned it yet." With that, I hurried upstairs. Ethan also followed me upstairs, silently changing the bed sheets with me. He smoothed every crease on the sheets. The box spring bed was made up like a premium piece of art. I was too embarrassed to lie on it. I understood he wanted me to keep him. Would others who marry minor husbands be like this too, happily accepting such treatment from him? How terrible must his experiences have been? I was full of doubt, momentarily ignoring him. But when I turned around, I was startled to see him taking off his shirt. I gasped, Hey, what are you doing? Put it back on quickly." He was very calm. "Just sleeping. This is my room. You sleep outside." He wasn't just usurping my home, but also reminded me, as if it were obvious, weren't we just having our wedding night? He wasn't wrong. But who told him to spew blood all over my bed and let me discover his life hadn't ended? Being with a living person is a major taboo. I'd been here alone for nearly 3 years, never experiencing this kind of battle. After waiting for a long time, without hearing him say anything more, I turned back. To my surprise, he had quietly come up behind me. His lips brushed past my forehead. The unfamiliar touch, fleeting like a dragonfly's trace on my skin, left me dizzy. Ethan was an undying ghost, so he still had some body temperature. We both felt a prickling, a familiar, sensual itch in certain places. It was like something long experienced suddenly came alive, reaching out from the depths of memory. It could be a scent, a taste, a familiar word, or, as now, the body heat of a living person. My nose tingled, and I suddenly hugged Ethan, emotion overriding reason, surging desire taking over. The first time I came here, at the Orientation Hotel, the ghost couple next door always made loud noises. That's when I first learned that ghosts also had adult activities. A while later, Ethan and I shared a blanket, my arm wrapped around his waist beneath the duvet. My hand glided over his body, and I said in a voice as sweet as honey, "If you truly don't want to go back, you can stay. I am indeed lacking a husband." He looked frail and sick, but unexpectedly, he was so powerful, which completely changed my attitude. Ethan was silent for a moment, then asked me, "Have you been here so long because you don't want to reincarnate?" "It's not that I don't want to. I died a tragic death before. Also, I don't even know where I died, and no one claimed my body. My situation is similar to a lonely ghost. Luckily, Grandpa has psychic abilities and told my parents to burn enough paper money to help me live so well down here. I told him a ghost who has lost their own body cannot reincarnate again. You're much better off than me, yet you don't want to live. I really don't understand what you're thinking." After talking for a while, I looked up to see why he wasn't speaking, and my eyes met his deep, dark gaze. At this moment, my mood shifted for an unknown reason. Suddenly, these eyes felt familiar, as if I had seen them somewhere before, like a particularly terrifying dark memory I had forgotten. I curiously asked Ethan, "Have we met before?" Ethan's eyes twitched slightly, as if he had something to tell me. It was so hard for this quiet man to speak. My sleepy eyelids drooped, and I yawned deeply, burying my face in his neck, falling into a deep sleep a second later. In the middle of the night, as I slept, I felt strange, as if I was submerged in a fishy-smelling lake, a chill engulfing my entire body. It was drowning me. Reaching to my side, Ethan was holding me tightly, like a child. His body began to grow cold. Unolder, I sat up, lifting the duvet. Wet blood had soaked through the mattress. We were once again lying on a bed of blood. Oh my God! Ethan had started round two, spitting out another mouthful of blood. "I told you from the beginning, your man's life isn't over yet. If you don't listen, you'll drag him to his death." The doctor was exasperated. A person who isn't dead yet, coming to the underworld, will retain the blood of the living. The longer he stays here, the more his blood will be depleted each day, and his body's condition up there will worsen. Eventually, he'll be half alive, half dead, becoming an outcast rejected by both the mortal and the underworld. Do you want to see him become like that? I hadn't expected the situation to be so serious. For a long time, I was speechless. The doctor deemed this matter important, no longer turning a blind eye as before, and immediately reported it to our district chief. The underworld had an order similar to the mortal world, with a hierarchical system and rules. Soon after, some officials arrived. They immediately returned Ethan to the living world. I looked at Ethan, who was still unconscious at this moment. For some reason, though I had only known him for 2 days, facing this moment of parting, my heart was even more reluctant than before. Ethan was gone. I hoped he would wake up soon and not do anything foolish again. As for me, I would just consider it a fleeting night with a ghost. Once I woke up, I would forget it immediately. My parents, as usual, burned paper money and provided me with all sorts of delicious food at day. Sometimes I worried they would cause inflation down here if they kept burning so much. A few days later, Officer Zhao told me to come to the Dumbbird station to pick up a delivery. I noticed he was getting lazier and lazier lately. He wouldn't bother to deliver large items, making me pick them up myself. When I arrived at the service station, Aunt Zhang said today's package was very large, and the delivery location was no longer my parents' old address, so they had to let me open it first. I awkwardly opened the box right there. When the contents were revealed, the ghosts inside and outside the service station gasped. I was also stunned. This was the first time I'd seen such lavish offerings. Truly an eye-opener. Hundreds of thousands of Hermes bags, fragrant, colorful macarons, and limited edition Van Cleef and Arpels pearl jewelry. All bought in sets. More than a dozen beautiful dresses, long, short, thick, thin, were crammed inside. Even the food was no less impressive. Hedberg's red velvet cake and Kemen chocolate. He sent me 3 of each. I took out a card from a large bouquet of peonies on which was written a line. "I haven't told you this yet. You're beautiful. Signed, Ethan." He's awake. A large group of ghosts gathered around, clamoring excitedly. How amazing. All these things are worth an entire apartment. Ella, I heard your groom is back. He's so good to you. He left, but still worries about you. That's true blessings for all of us. They said that, but truthfully, I wasn't happy. I borrowed Aunt Zhang's small cart to take these things home. I didn't know if this sudden dip in emotion was due to the disparity or something else. Because he had returned, and I still had to stay here indefinitely. Hearing someone call my name, I turned around. A female ghost who had been at the service station was running toward me. She pursed her lips, hesitating. "Sister, it wasn't convenient to tell you earlier. Your groom." Hearing this, I immediately perked up. "What is it?" The female ghost continued to reveal with a mysterious air. "When I was alive, I knew him. He was the fiancé of one of my classmates' sisters. I heard he was engaged very early on. Sister, you weren't tricked, were you?" I confirmed with the female ghost multiple times, checking the names of those involved, and finally received the result. What she said was true. My heart went cold. "Ethan, you're quite something. You clearly have a fiancé, so why did you provoke me? Remembering our intimate time in bed last night, every gesture and tender word felt like a slap in the face. In pain, I rushed to the underworld office and retrieved my marriage registration with Ethan. In the underworld, once registered, my book of life and death would automatically add Ethan's name. The laws of the underworld are similar to those above. One husband, one wife, husband and wife are equal. No betrayal or deception. Now Ethan had returned, but our marital relationship was still valid. Originally, I thought this didn't matter, since I wouldn't be looking for another husband anyway. This new information infuriated me. I just wanted to sever ties with him quickly and never see him again. I asked the lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. Now I would go find Ethan and divorce him. In the afternoon, the internal medicine ward was quiet. Tree shadows outside the window casting onto the white hospital bed. Ethan lay on the bed, eyes closed, sleeping soundly. His face looked much better. I wandered on the ceiling for a while, then chose a pink bunny doll on the next bed and possessed it. The bunny was an inanimate object. It seemed that Ethan's family wasn't treating him very well, not even arranging a VIP room for him. I, now in the bunny doll, toddled over to Ethan's bed, grabbed the bedsheet, and slowly crawled onto the bed. I sat on his pillow, raising my furry front paws to poke his face. Ethan frowned and woke up. I was now a walking bunny, my invisible eyebrows furrowed. But unfortunately, I couldn't speak. Otherwise, I would definitely scold him. Ethan's eyes went blank for a few seconds. Then the corners of his mouth curved up. Ella. His voice was hoarse and low, rapping my name in affection, just like that night. I shook my head, almost falling for his words again. I crawled over him. Midway, he also helped me by pushing me a little, then placed his palm on my head, stroking it. I knocked his hand away, standing on his hip in a threatening manner. You, I pointed at him. May. Then I pointed at my small chest, finally forming an X with both hands, making a gesture of separation. Ethan patiently watched me, an uncontrollable smile spreading across his face. I rarely saw him like this. All right, I'll make you cry later, you'll see. I put my arms behind my back, unzipped the doll, and pulled out the divorce papers from inside. I had even prepared a pen beforehand. Ethan opened the papers, reading them over and over, his eyebrows gradually knitting together. I sat impatiently with crossed legs, squinting to observe his expression. After finishing the papers, he calmly folded the agreement and said to me, Ella, I'm your husband. I'm not getting a divorce. I was truly annoyed. It seemed I had to switch to another topic. Confronting him was frighteningly difficult. I twisted the bunny's head, looking around. Suddenly, a voice from the next bed drifted over. He can't let go of you. He calls your name every night. I'm utterly exhausted. Who was that? Next, I was horrified to see the vegetative patient in the next bed. No, to be precise, it must have been her ghost. Sitting beside her real body, she looked at Ethan and me helplessly. Ethan couldn't see her, so he hadn't noticed anything amiss. I looked at her, choked and hesitant. The girl added, So you're Ella. He calls your name every day. During the day, he's a quiet heartthrob. But at night, when he sleeps, he's louder than 100 ducks. By the way, she pointed to the bunny I possessed. That's my rabbit. My face flushed. And I quickly exited the rabbit. The little rabbit, having lost its spirit, slumped to the ground. Ethan quickly picked it up, dusting off non-existent dust. He must have realized I had left earlier, his expression a little disappointed, looking at the little rabbit, not knowing. I looked at the vegetative girl. You've been here all this time? The girl smiled proudly. I know many secrets here, for example. Which nurse has a crush on your minor husband and rushes in to prick him with needles every day? I Also know your minor husband is being sneaky behind your back, about to marry the daughter of a wealthy family. I knew the rumors I heard were true. The vegetative girl and I went to a bubble tea shop near a hospital. We both possessed a pair of girlfriends drinking bubble tea. Finally, she met someone she could communicate with. Once the conversation started, it couldn't end. The vegetative girl was only 23 this year, having graduated from college not long ago. She was about to become a respected teacher, when one day she saved a primary school student running in the road, and since then she had been in a vegetative state, hospitalized for over a year. As if finding a kindred spirit, we truly shared a common affliction. I sighed and told her, I also died saving a pedestrian. What's infuriating is that the person who hit me didn't take me to the hospital after hitting me, but dragged me to a deserted place to dispose of the body. I wasn't even dead then. I saw them bury me alive with my own eye. The vegetative girl shuddered. No way! How could anyone be so evil? Do you still remember what that person looked like? I'll help you become an avenging spirit. I shook my head, saying with a hint of disappointment, I don't remember very clearly. Only a very vague impression, but if I met them again, I definitely recognized them. We drank bubble tea, feeling a bit uneasy, so after chatting for a while, we returned to the hospital. When our spirits left, the two girls we possessed instantly shook their empty bubble teacups, asking each other in a panic if they had just lost their memory. The vegetative girl and I smiled and returned to the ward. As soon as we reached the door, a sharp female voice came from inside. Get away from me. I'm telling you, it's not that easy. You live as my man, and you'll die as my ghost. Don't believe me? Just try and see who wins. That was his domineering fiancée. The vegetative girl leaned over and told me. As soon as her voice faded, a figure rushed out. She brushed past my shoulder, seemingly sensing something unusual. She glanced towards me. This direct gaze felt like it ripped open my cage. This was the face I would never forget until I died. The vegetative girl pushed me, asking what was wrong. By the time I regained consciousness, that person had already gone far away. I watched her disappear, her face still haunting my eyes. Memories rapidly traversed time, resurfacing the rainy night 3 years ago. 11 p.m. It was raining, the road was deserted, and thick fog hung under the streetlights. After a day of work, I just wanted to get home quickly. After getting off the last bus, I still had to walk for a while. The weather was a bit cold, so I wrapped my knitted sweater tightly and sent a message to tell my mom I'd be home in 10 minutes. Before I could press send, a man suddenly rushed out into the middle of the road like a ghost. I was startled by him, and my phone fell to the ground. As I squatted down to pick it up, I heard the screeching brakes of a sports car in the distance. I looked up. A dark red sports car, like a midnight panther, was speeding toward this spot. And the man in the middle of the road, he stood perfectly still, waiting for the sports car to rush towards him. I anxiously yelled, "Quick, move!" "What are you doing?" He wasn't unconscious. He heard my shout and turned to look at me. The young man's dark eyes were blurred by the rain and fog, but a paralyzing despair silently infiltrated them. The sports car's headlights were already on him. In that urgent situation, I ran to him, using my body to push him to the side of the road. We all fell into a puddle of rainwater. The red Ferrari sped past us, stopping ahead, its lights off. I breathed a sigh of relief, stood up, and helped the man up. At this moment, the horrifying roar of the sports car sounded again. Its high-beam headlights illuminated this small area at night as clearly as day, allowing me to see a flustered woman behind the windshield. The man next to me was unconscious. Large raindrops splashed against his pale face, and the direct glare of the headlights also hurt my eyes. I couldn't help him anymore. I resigned myself to my fate. The sound of collision, braking, and the suffocated thud of a heavy object falling to the ground echoed through the rain. Rain lashed directly into my eyes, nose, and mouth, but I felt no pain. A handful of dirt showered down, obscuring my vision. Above the pit, several tall men in suits held shovels. The man I saved was still alive. He struggled to crawl to the edge of the pit, reaching out his hand to me. But a second later, he was pulled away by the man in black. The rain grew heavier, the night so thick it seemed to swallow the entire swamp. The woman looked down at me from above, coldly telling her subordinates, "Remember to clean up thoroughly. When you go back, don't forget to wash my car." The vegetative girl's voice pulled my thoughts back. "Your minor husband is packing his things. Is he planning to be discharged? What the heck? Does he even want to take my little bunny with him? Oh, well, just leave a stack of money on the bed. That's fine." I stopped at the door, separated by this wall. She asked me where I was going. I didn't answer. The sun here was very hot and glaring, so I possessed a kitten on the hospital's lower floor and used its body to run home. My disappearance 3 years ago was an unsolved case in this city. On the night of the accident, all surveillance cameras on my way home were simultaneously taken in for maintenance. A mysterious force manipulated the truth and buried it along with my death forever. For 3 years, I had witnessed the collapse, pain, and helplessness of my family members. I resented that woman, and I still do. Today, I finally found her. I could use my power to bother her, even kill her. But if I did that, I would violate the greatest rule of the underworld. Vengeful spirits who harbor grudges would be imprisoned and punished, just like those who made mistakes in their lives. Yin and Yang are separate. The dead can never interfere with the lives of the living. Did I really want to let go? The kitten followed its memory home, raising its 2 front paws to scratch at the door. As soon as the door opened, I meowed and rubbed my head against my mother's calf. My mother carried me to the yard to feed me and give me water. When a deceased person feels homesick, they transform into other small creatures to return home. This was a story my mother had told me since I was a child. After I died, they treated all living beings better. I curled up and slept under the row of flowers in the yard. Iriu. Just like when I was little, I dozed off listening to my grandfather humming out-of-tune opera numbers. My mother cooked in the kitchen while my father watched hundreds of anti-Japanese TV dramas tirelessly. I rolled my round belly. 2 mischievous butterflies chased each other, flying past me. Time can heal wounds, and my family had returned to normal life. Well, let it be. Things that cannot be changed, just let them drift with the wind. To forget someone, one only needs to dream a dream. Returning to the underworld again, I always felt an emptiness in my heart, as if something was missing. In contrast to my situation, my neighbor's house had become bustling recently. My neighbor, like me, was also a young female ghost. She died earlier than me, 20 years ago, but remained eternally young. She was adamant about not reincarnating. Just recently, her parents passed away. They came down to the underworld to reunite with her, and the whole family was overjoyed, happy and harmonious as they were originally. When I was invited as a guest to her house, I profoundly realized something. The death of loved ones is actually just them going ahead to prepare a home waiting for you in the next life. The neighbor girl's mother was a kind aunt who knew I couldn't reincarnate because my body was lost, so she wanted to set me up with a male ghost. I met him, felt he wasn't bad, and my mood lightened. I was eager to go show off to that scummy ex-husband. The seniors of the underworld had taught me that ghosts can also visit dreams, but only if the person truly misses you can. You enter their dream. One night, as husband, 100 days of kindness. I wasn't sure if Ethan remembered me, but just hearing them say this made me want to try. Ethan had been discharged from the hospital. I found his home address by asking the hospital's nurse station, so when dark clouds covered the moon, I slipped inside. I knew Ethan was very rich. Before, he was generous, burning 1 to 2 million for me at once. Now that he had returned to his villa, I was even more curious about what he did for a living. So wealthy, yet he still wanted to die. Unbelievable. The large house was as silent as a cemetery. He lived alone. I found Ethan sleeping in the master bedroom and turned into a wisp of smoke, flying into his head. Coincidentally, he was also dreaming of me. It was just that the content of the dream was a bit intimate. As soon as I entered, I was stunned by the scene. What was this? What was this? Greeting me like this right off the bat. I quickly stood up, intending to run away. Ethan in the dream quickly grabbed my ankle, pulling me back. He still didn't know it was the real me, continuing to be engrossed in his dream. He seemed to have gone mad. I really shouldn't have come. A sheep falling into a tiger's mouth, tormenting myself. I couldn't bear it anymore. Trembling my fingers, I yelled loudly, "Get out! Get out!" Ethan lifted his face, his eyes regaining some clarity. Ella, my expression was not good. Ella, my expression was not good. It's you. He calmed down, but his eyes were still fixed on me, as if he wanted to devour me. I quickly grabbed the duvet, covered myself, and lightly cleared my throat. "Have you signed the divorce agreement yet?" "I came to get it. It was burned." "What?" He didn't explain further, burying his head and trying to kiss me again. Suddenly I wanted to know one thing. Ethan, does he really like me? Moonlight filled the bed. I cried out in pain, and his movements softened again. I closed my eyes. Love is something that can be felt. If that's the case, why did he want to be with the killer who took my life? The moment I saw that woman in the hospital, along with memories of him resurfacing, I finally knew the reason for that night's inexplicable familiarity with him. Ethan was the person I saved from the car. I thought he must have recognized me the first time he saw me. So, was he cherishing me in his palm because he wanted to atone for his mistakes? But not everything can be compensated for. Ethan. The moment he turned around, I couldn't help but cry loudly. Ethan buried my chin in his shoulder, crying silently, and he hugged me tighter. Throughout, he kept saying something to me. Ella, wait for me. Before dawn, I'll go back. After thinking it through, I ran to my neighbor aunt and said, I don't want the matchmaking anymore. As long as it hasn't been signed, I'll never be able to start a new spring. He was infuriating, and I hesitated. He was getting more and more excessive, as if he wasn't planning to live up there anymore, sending everything down. Clothes, shoes, watches, daily necessities, everything. One day, Officer Zhao asked me to pick up a package myself. When I arrived, this person actually sent me a sofa. There was also a letter enclosed. He said, "This sofa is very expensive, very comfortable, just enough for 2 people to lie on." My face turned red. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to quickly stop his crazy behavior. I easily went to Ethan's house. He wasn't home. The pink rabbit he bought from the vegetative girl for 10,000 yuan was placed in the most conspicuous spot in his house. I once again possessed the little rabbit, jumped off the table, went to the doorway, and squatted, keeping watch. He would definitely know I had come if he saw this little rabbit. It had been half a month since we last parted, and for some reason I was a little anxious. After a long wait, just as I was about to drift off to sleep, the door unlocked. I happily looked up. Ethan walked into the house, hand in hand, with his fiancée. If entering the dream last time was walking into a trap, this time was surely humiliating myself. I had anticipated all sorts of ways he might look when he saw me, but I never thought it would be a scene like this. The woman's fair arm was wrapped around his neck. She pressed her luscious red lips against his seductive. Ethan tilted his head back, coaxing her with a smile. "Kiss later. Sweetie, change your shoes first." She reluctantly lifted her foot to hook her slippers. "Oh, why is there a rabbit here?" Ethan looked at her gently. "Do you like it? It's a gift for you." The little rabbit couldn't do anything but absorb all their intimacy into its deep, dark eyes. Fortunately, a rabbit's heart is just a ball of cotton, so it didn't have to experience this heartbreaking pain. Since I returned, my ghost friend said I had changed. I no longer liked going out, and my conversations had significantly reduced. Occasionally, when picking up things my parents burned for me, I would just sign and leave. I didn't want to look at the row of chairs where Ethan had sat before. Sometimes, when asked where my groom was, I would suddenly get angry for no clear reason. Ethan's appearance had dispelled my deadly resentment, and his betrayal destroyed all that trust. I could feel it. Resentment began to accumulate within me. Perhaps one day, I too would become a vengeful ghost, disregarding everything to seek revenge. A few days later, a letter from the world above once again interrupted my life. The letter was from my parents. "Ella, we finally have good news. Your disappearance case has made new progress. The police station has summoned us to determine the suspected location where your body was discarded. My dear, your parents are very agitated. Heaven has eyes. Your killer will surely receive due punishment." After reading the letter, I held it for a long time, unable to calm down. How could it be so sudden? Right, tomorrow. I glanced at the date on the letter. Wasn't tomorrow today? There was a light rain in the sky. Several police cars were parked in the barren forest 30 kilometers from the city. In the form of a bird, I stood on a treetop, watching the police dig diligently. The hole grew deeper and deeper. Another shovel went down, and someone dug up a piece of white bone. He shouted, and a group of people rushed over, the rain seemingly getting heavier, wetting everyone's eyes. My mother fainted crying, while my father hugged her, his eyes red-rimmed. The corpse in the pit had long decomposed. Through the crowd, I could see a white skeleton with a corner of the dress I had worn the night I disappeared. In the past 3 years, my new clean dress had been bitten and torn by countless worms, snakes, and cockroaches, decomposing into many pieces. I didn't want to look anymore. In the continuous rain and fog, a figure with a black umbrella in the distance caught my attention. He stood alone, far from the crowd, bones and rain covering him like a silent statue, yet subtly revealing so much. My heart ached. At this moment, everything was clear. Zero. Well,